Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today I have with us, he's the director, and he has the sequel to his original movie, Theater of Terror. It's called Return to the Theater of Terror. I have with us Tom Ryan. Tom, welcome to the Horror Realm.
Thank you, Travis. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to have you on. By the way, I want to thank you for sending me the screener to Return to the Theater of Terror. It was fun, man.
Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Welcome, and tell everybody a little bit about Return to the Theater of Terror.
Return to the Theater of Terror is a sequel anthology to our 2019 release, The Theater of Terror. Both kind of follow the same formula of just kind of trying to revisit those anthologies of the days gone by, like from the 80s, whether it be The Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side. A little further back, The Twilight Zone or The Night Gallery. We were just interested in delivering a variety of short stories with very different themes. Lots of different independent film actors, some great locations around New Jersey, some in New York as well. And so Return is actually just a follow-up to that original anthology, where we tell 4 more spine-tingling tales of terror.
Now, 2 things I want to kiss your ass about your movie that I loved, without giving anything away. So, like, the first thing I wanted to give away was the acting, and like when it comes to indie horror, acting is most filmmakers think that acting is not important, but for someone who's an audience, I'm not saying it has to be Oscar award winning, but it has to. You have to kind of feel the emotions of the actors, and in your movie, you did a great story of that. I mean, a chance of that, and also too, the way this movie is shot beautifully for a indie horror movie.
Thank you. Yeah. So, just in regards to the actors, I mean, just as being a film fan and somebody that likes to make movies, for me, that's always been such an important part of the movie. It's like I want to believe what I'm watching, and the first level of getting through to believing what you're watching in the story are the actors and them delivering those characters to you. So I've been really lucky to been able to have networked with and worked with some of the best independent film actors in the tri-state area. I believe that very strongly. But I thought they did a great job delivering those stories for us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, what was the second part of your comment?
Well, actually, I'm going to ask you a question. Bounce off of that. So, why do you feel like so many, I'm not even going to say horror, but indie filmmakers don't think that to the audience that acting is so important?
I wouldn't necessarily say that they don't think that acting is so important, but when you're making independent films, it's difficult to get very good actors, because very good actors are really trying to further their careers and make a living out of it. And when you want to make a living out of it, you want to get paid to do it. And when you're making independent horror films, there's almost a contradiction there. A lot of times independent horror films are very low budget, where you can't really afford some of the better actors. I think that, like, I've been lucky to develop great relationships within the community and be able to raise the kind of funds that it takes to support the quality of actor that you want to get to deliver on your film. And I think it takes, number one, I think there's a lot of levels to it. I think that all actors should be paid exactly what they deserve because of what they do for your film and for your story. In the independent film realm, I like to think that if you could deliver a great story, a great film that's done professionally, as professionally as you can get it done on your budget, and you share those projects with the actors that you want to work with, and they see what you're trying to do. I mean, most of us in the independent film scene are very passionate about what we're doing. A lot of artists and a lot of people that are willing to accept lower budgets, compensation in order to get a project made. But with that said, I do everything I can to make sure that we, reciprocate them for their hard work and do everything that we can, because there are people that are funding these projects out there, and we're just trying to find them and trying to get them to understand the quality of people that are in this film genre, and the fact that you would like to get more of them involved, so that more of this genre is taken more seriously.
I agree. Because I mean, for a long time, I'm a huge horror fan, and in the 80s and 90s, when you look at like Trauma and Full Moon, the acting was not the biggest part of the movies. It was the campiness, it was the fun, but like it seems as horror has evolved over time, it's a little more emphasis on the acting and the character development.
Yeah, I think particular genres had different levels of actors. I mean, you had Donald Pleasance in the original Halloween, who's considered a fantastic actor.
Yes.
And sprinkled throughout many of the original horror films, whether it be Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or any of those classics, that Hellraiser, you had a lot of very talented actors involved in those projects. And maybe at the time the project was kind of a low budget, campy thing. But to have these heavyweights involved in it, I think the filmmakers still understood that was important, to actually try to raise funds for the film to a certain extent, right? You couldn't just kind of put anything you wanted to on YouTube or on Amazon Prime like you can today. So it was a little bit more demanding that you deliver on the talent. So when you look back at those films, I think there were particular ones that were a little bit heavier on acting, something like along the lines of, let's say, The Exorcist, which really relied on storytelling and acting. And then probably you could flip that to something that was a little bit more campy and fun, like a Friday the 13th or something like that, or to a certain extent. So I think there's a place for both approaches. But I do think there needs to be an emphasis on the importance of serious filmmaking in the thriller and the horror genre, where you do kind of focus on telling these great stories with these great talents, because having fun with horror to me is such an important thing to do, and I love to do it. But I also believe that there are dramatic stories that you can tell with that, and having some heavyweights delivering those scenes is it's great for a cinephile.
It really is.
Yeah.
Now, the second thing I was saying was I enjoy the way this movie is shot. It's shot absolutely beautiful. I mean, the way you use the angles, the coloring. Tell us a little bit about that.
So first and foremost, I'll talk about our three cinematographers, Louis Livitz, Christian Santiago, and Rigoberto Diaz. Fantastic cinematographers, good friends of mine, guys that I love to work with, and these are the guys that know their camera work. I work very closely with them on what my vision is, and I think when you kind of form these relationships with these cinematographers and they get to kind of understand what you're thinking and what you're going for, you turn out some great work. And I think with these guys, I had a great relationship. Louis, I've worked on many films with him in the past. I worked on the original anthology with him, as well as some side videography jobs that we do together. Christian was actually, who worked on Robot with me, was actually the cinematographer for my first feature film, Faces. And so that was a reunion for us that had been a long time coming. And then Rigoberto Diaz, who I worked with on Haunted and the wraparound narrative for Return to the Theater of Terror. Him and I have been working on projects together ever since, so we really clicked. Those guys really make a big difference on bringing that, that cinema feel to your films and making them look professional. And again, that's another thing to me that's really important. And a lot of those throwback anthologies that I was telling you about used very dramatic kind of angles and presentations and Dutch angles and zooms and a lot of just a lot of cool approaches to really drawing you into a more suspenseful or sinister kind of story and kind of messing with your head that way. And so I think that's something that we try to I try to do with the films, and I try to communicate that to the guys I work with. Yeah.
because I mean, and that's something you were saying too. Like sometimes just using small things like angles. If you're working with a lower budget, it can actually make it look like a bigger budget film.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever you can do when you're working on a low budget, there's a lot of tricks out there. If you want to make your film look extraordinary, and you don't necessarily need to have $1 million to do it. I'd love to have $1 million to do it, but yeah, we work with what we've got for now, right? So, yeah.
All right, so I'm assuming that you've been a horror fan for your life. I mean your whole entire life. You're talking about the Twilight Zone, and anthologies from back in the day. Now, it seems like right now, when it comes to indie horror, I grew up on horror fan, Twilight Zone, Tales from the Crypt, Creep, good stuff, and it seemed like there was a lot more emphasis in the horror genre on anthologies. And that kind of disappeared, but you kind of see it's making a comeback in the indie scene.
Well, I think that it was more popular when it was a television format, because it was episodic in that sense. I think when it comes to movies, marketing teams kind of study what people like to see. I don't know if people necessarily are as interested in a collection of plots as they are into one specific plot that might draw them out. I don't know what that marketing research looks like, but that's what I would assume it has something to do with. But mostly anthologies, like we've seen, have been episodic on television. Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, Tales from the Dark Side. And more recently, we have like Black Mirror. They rebooted Twilight Zone, Jordan Peele's version of it. I think that's an easier format for them to pursue on television. I kind of enjoy it more in the television format as well, because I feel that if it's a film, that you're probably going to be limited to 3 to 4 stories. And if you're doing it on television, I would love to shoot an anthology and write 22 short stories, like the old television, 22 episodes. I would love to do something like that. I think that's very cool, and it allows the opportunity to get a lot of different writers involved, and directors and cinematographers. At least when you're dealing with television, I think it's rare, with the exception of Gene Roddenberry, who for the most part, not Gene Roddenberry. Oh my gosh. The host of the Twilight Zone. I can't believe I forgot his name.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on this one.
I know you're talking about.
Yes. But as opposed to his involvement in the franchise, and most of these are really kind of spread apart. Rod Serling, thank you very much. I just popped into my head. A lot of these other episodic anthologies are more open to allowing different talent to get involved, which is fun. I don't know how much it can guarantee success, because I think sometimes when you get a lot of different artists involved in something, they kind of lose the concept and the vision, where Rod Serling was directing that ship directly himself. So.
Mm-hmm. And one thing great about the shows were too, they had amazing hosts. Like some of those, even if it was a puppet, that they were fun hosts. You got some attachment, and they guided you from story to story.
Right. I miss Elvira too. Right?
Elvira's great. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but those were always fun, and there was an anthology called The Monster Club that was televised that I really loved as a child, and that was a big inspiration for me as well. If you've never seen it, you should check it out. Vincent Price and John Carradine were in that. Nice. Yeah, and it's there's a great collection of stories. There's one in particular that I really, really like, and it's the story revolves around a film director that's scouting a location, and I'll let you watch that episode. But it's kind of a relatable one, but it's a very cool and creepy episode.
Okay, I'll definitely check that out.
The Monster Club. Yep.
The Monster Club. All right. So I have a 2-part question.
Okay.
For your time. All right. Right now, when it comes to indie filmmaking in general, it's a lot easier. I mean, we're getting to see a lot of new filmmakers that we normally wouldn't get to see and get no voice, which is a great thing. But do you also think that is because I go into Tubi, I do Tubi reviews, random horror Tubi movies because I'm trying to like. There's so many movies on streaming services, especially when it comes to indie horror, that I feel like a lot of them get missed. So I try to shine a spotlight on as many as I can.
Yeah.
But so good thing. But do you think it's also kind of watered down the product? And if you are an indie, especially horror filmmaker, you almost have to climb the mountain to stand out.
Yeah, I mean, do I think it's oversaturated? To a certain extent, I do think it is, but I'm sure that we all think it's oversaturated. Everyone that wants to be seen and be recognized. We want more room for our film to get out there. I mean, I think it's a good thing. And simultaneously, it's also it's going to wind up back where we were again. I think there's going to be such an oversaturation that the cream will rise to the top, right? Eventually, and then it'll become more difficult for low budget filmmakers to have their work seen. This is really kind of a transition time, I think, and we have a lot of streaming platforms to get on, and there's more being created every day, and who knows what we're going to see in 5 years, what new streaming platforms there will be. It's difficult. Like I said, it's wonderful, and in a sense where people could get their work out there, but at the same time, I think what's really hurt films and television is that we all used to have this collective focus on what our entertainment was. Mm-hmm. We all kind of shared the big stars. We sort of do that now still, but not as much as we used to. But we all watched the same television shows, and we all saw the same movies, and we would all go and talk about it at the water cooler at work. Yep. And what's happened now is that there's so much content and so much new material that's airing every day and on a new streaming network and on Paramount or Netflix or Hulu or HBO Max or whatever, Amazon Prime, whatever it is that you're subscribing to has new series and new movies coming out. And we're all watching different things. And it's kind of hard for us to collectively celebrate those things and for them to become nostalgic for us anymore. And I mean, I feel like, when Star Wars came out, we all went to go see Star Wars. Or when Raiders of the Lost came out, Raiders of the Lost Ark, we all went to go see that. Or when Jaws came out, or when E.T. came out, and I just feel like communally we're kind of losing that collectiveness where we'd all share in the same stuff. Now, I'll come up to you and go, "Hey, Travis, have you seen Breaking Bad?" And you're like, "No, I'm watching Justified, but you got to check out Star Trek, Picard." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to check that out right after I'm done with." And we're all kind of on, and
It's so true, but it seems like it was just not that long ago. It seemed like it was 10 or 15 years ago that we all, as a society, on Sunday nights we watched Game of Thrones, and then we came to work on Monday and talked about it, or even The Wire, or The Shield, or Sopranos. Like there were shows that we all. Breaking Bad was another one, but there was Walking Dead. Walking Dead, like you could not go on social media the next day because somebody will spoil it if you didn't watch it. Yep. Like it was such a thing, and I agree with you. It's completely lost now because I'm sitting here watching Lincoln Lawyer, and no one else I know is watching Lincoln Lawyer. Right.
Yeah. There's so many options now that just kind of like we're not watching live television anymore, right? People are not like, "Oh man, tomorrow night is this. I can't go out. I'm watching the season finale of this."
Must see TV. Yep.
Everything is on demand, and so we don't care anymore. I remember watching the old Buffy the Vampire Slayer television show, and when the series finale was on, there was no, "I'm going to DVR it."
Yep.
At least for me, I didn't have a DVR. I don't know if
No,
it
I
was.
didn't have one
I'm
either.
sure
Yeah.
it must have been out by then, but I was just like, I got to be home and see this
Hmm.
thing. And that's how we treated most of our entertainment. It's like it was live and we had to be there and share it together. And this is what we're missing about movie theaters. You know, some great movie would premiere and we'd all get together in a theater and everybody be sitting there and this thing would be amazing and the sound was amazing and the movie
Yes.
would be funny or exciting or horrific or whatever it was, and collectively we would all share in it, and I'd hear people laughing and I'd laugh louder and we'd all get scared together and laugh and everything that happened. And I think people tend to forget that. And we've embraced, and I'm sure that COVID had a huge part in this, but it makes you embrace something that I really sort of despise, which is kind of like a Netflix and chill attitude, where it's like,
It is. Yes.
I'm just going to stay home and I'm going to be on my phone. So my phone is going to be my social, my phone me telling people, oh, I'm watching this movie right now. I love this movie. And I'm sitting on the couch with my cat and I'm watching this movie. And this is how we ingest entertainment now. And I think it's become so wide. There's a place for that. Don't get me wrong. When you're sick or freezing outside or whatever, there's a place for these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel that when it comes to this kind of entertainment, there's no better experience than sharing these things with a group of other people. There's nothing like seeing, Return of the Jedi or Empire Strikes Back when Darth Vader cuts off Luke's hand, or when Luke takes off his helmet. Like, there's nothing like seeing this stuff. There's nothing like seeing Avengers Endgame in the theater. Yes. When Captain America hears Falcon saying, "On your left, Cap," right? There's nothing like that when you're in that theater and he picks up the hammer, right? These are things, these are moments that you share with other people, because it's not as fun to sit there and fist bump by yourself, right?
I agree.
And I just hope that we're not losing it. I think that people miss it. I think that there's a lot of factors that make it difficult to kind of get back to that right now, which are prices, right? Movie prices
But Tom, I go to the movies a lot, right? And because I'm a huge theater fan, I've always been a theater fan. I used to go once a week, because I used to do reviews. But now I go probably once a month, right? And I have like the movie pass. It's really not that expensive. Like for $20 a month, you can literally see 3 movies a month for $20 a month.
And that's not bad. Here's the problem: it's families. It's families.
Yes.
And that's what it comes down to with anything. It's not that bad to buy one baseball ticket.
Yes.
Or one, like, okay, I'm going to splurge this weekend. I'm going to go to the football game. I'm going to go see the Knicks. I'm going to splurge. But when you're going with a family of 4 or more, it's a fortune. And that's what's happened. That's what's happened. You take your kids to the movie theater. You're buying everybody popcorn. You're buying everybody soda, and you're buying everybody 4 tickets. You're driving. You're parking. It's not as convenient as it used to be.
But also, too, I feel like the newer generation can be assholes in the movie theater, too. They love to talk and fuck around and play on their damn fucking phones. The phone's ringing.
Well, the phones are bad. I think...
Yeah, the phones are killing... they're killing cinema in general.
Right. They are. I think that the a-holes have always been there. I can remember dealing with that stuff when I was young. Just throwing popcorn and being stupid. And but the phones, to me, is I cannot understand how someone cannot detach from this device long enough to watch a movie. And it's like, you're right. I might as well be looking down and seeing someone snorting cocaine off of a mirror, because when I'm looking down and I see them texting during the movie, I just don't get it. I don't get it. And I get it. It's that people are completely distracted. And I think this is another thing that's kind of hurting entertainment to a certain degree, is that our younger generation is being programmed to get instant entertainment, in 10 seconds or 5 seconds or 7 seconds. And sitting down and watching a movie for 2 hours and 15 minutes is like an impossible task.
It really is.
They don't have the focus and the patience. They don't understand what it's like to sit and be quiet and watch something unfold. They're instantly distracted within. And trust me, I have 2 kids. I know. So they're interested. They're instantly distracted and bored. And what's happened at home is because you're not in the theater where you have to watch the movie that you paid for. Everything is paused. We'll watch this later, right?
Yes.
Okay, we watched 10 minutes of it. We'll come back to this. There's no, you're not watching it on live television where this is your opportunity. It's the movie. It's on Channel 11 tonight. This is a Friday night movie. Let's watch it. Bathroom. You got to get back from the bathroom. The commercial's almost done. There's no pause, right?
There's no pause.
And now everything is paused. Everything is on demand. Everything is on a to watch list. And
you can come back. You can come back because you use the term Netflix and chill, which at one time it was Netflix and chill. Now it means something completely different.
Yeah.
But the reason why is because now if you want to get some booty, you know what I mean, you pause the movie, go get some ass, and you never come back to the movie. I've been there and done that before.
Never come back. And that's what happens. And so like that will happen to independent filmmakers where we say, here's my film. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Vudu. Check it out. And people say it will be there. It's not going anywhere. I'll check it. And so whatever promoting I do for that film that day, unless you say, let me click on this link and watch this movie right now, you're probably going, I'll check that out. I want to check this guy's movie out. And then out of no malice or ill will, you forget about it. And
it just goes onto a watch list.
Goes onto a watch list. And this is the tough part of participating in this streaming pool of constantly renewed and refreshed content. You know, my movie comes out 3 weeks ago, it's already old news because they're releasing something new again. You know, so it's challenging, but it's better than it would have been because right now I don't think anyone would have seen any of my movies if it wasn't for these social media and for streaming and for independent film festivals. So they do benefit the filmmaker to a degree. You know? Yeah.
So, but you did bring up an interesting topic. As a filmmaker, you know, the next generation who's coming behind us, their attention span is completely fucking gone. So how do you adapt as a filmmaker down the road? Or is that something you're not even be thinking about?
Well, I'm certainly not going to adapt. I'm making films because of my love of films and because of stories I want to tell and because of the way I want to tell those stories and present them. And I just don't think that I could adapt that to a shorter attention span. I mean, what that would require, number one, is making short. I'm not a YouTuber or a TikToker. Yeah. And so I think that that's what separates. There are YouTube and TikTokers for those people. And then there are filmmakers for people that do want to enjoy storytelling and see beautiful visuals or, you know, just the work of makeup artists and prop artists and art departments and all the amazing people that go into selling a story as being completely realistic to the viewer. And I think there are people that appreciate that, and then there are people that are going to be on TikTok and some of those people are both. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you have to be one or the other, right? But there's a big portion of the population right now. You might be heard about. They are saying that movies should be way too long. They need to be within an hour to 90 minutes. Because their attention span is completely. Well, and that's like telling someone how long a book should be without knowing what the story is. You know, if you don't know what the story is, I don't believe that you could put time constraints on anything. As an indie filmmaker and submitting to a lot of film festivals, something that I run into a lot is that there's certain film festivals that they don't accept short stories that are longer than they want to format, or features that are too short or to be a feature. Like they break things into a lot of different categories, and I appreciate that they need to do that for their programming concerns. But at the same time, that will never affect how long one of my films is, because number one, I don't believe that I build a lot of fat into a film where if I need to shorten it, I could just cut out, most of the film and say, I'll just cut out all these scenes. That's all fat anyway. I don't build a film that way. But I also believe that, if you're going to tell a story, it needs to be exactly as long as it needs to be. And if that doesn't fit into someone's idea of how long your film should be, then that maybe it's not for them. And I don't think that you should bend or sacrifice the story that you want to tell in order to fit into a certain time frame. It doesn't, if it's not made that way.
I agree. So I mean, as a movie watcher, I don't mind watching a 3-hour movie. Listen, has my attention span gotten any shorter, a little older? I've got 100%. Especially sitting in a theater for 3 hours, like it's something that like my brain and my bladder can't do anymore. But if it's a movie that engages me and it is interesting, like for instance, an Avengers, I can sit and watch it. I mean, and I think most people can.
Yeah, no doubt. And I will say that too. And here's where the difference is. Of course I've seen 2.5 hour long movies that were boring.
Yes, me too.
Of course I have. Yeah. But I've also seen 2.5 hour movies that I felt should have been 3 hours because they were so good. Right. Mm-hmm. So it really just depends on who's delivering the story. I'm not saying that you can't make a story that's too long. You can. You can.
I have definitely watched some stuff. I'm like, wow, there's a lot of filler in this movie.
It can happen.
And they could knock 30 minutes off, and it would have been perfectly fine.
It can happen, and I think ultimately the viewer will recognize it when it feels that way. Mm-hmm. And if the filmmaker does a good enough job, it won't feel that way to the viewer. It'll feel like, wow, this was just exactly right, and that's the challenge. My point is that I don't believe that you should ever look at time constraints and feel, well, if I make a crappy movie, but it's the perfect length, people will love it. No, man. No, it's not about making a certain length movie. It's about making a good movie, whether it's 3 hours long or whether it's 90 minutes long. It could be done either way. It just depends on.
Do you think horror fans can sit through a 3 hour long horror movie?
Well, I know that the two parts of It that came out, the remake, I almost wonder if people would have watched those back to back if they had come out simultaneously.
I don't think so.
Because it was a pretty big deal when it came out. I remember people were very excited about it. But do I think horror fans can? I don't know. It's the older I get, I think I feel a little bit less connected to what I think the horror community is like right now. And I love the horror community, but I feel that the fandom is kind of cheating now towards exploitation and gore because it's fun as opposed to substantive stuff, I guess I could say. It's kind of a weird thing to say about the horror genre because horror is really a broad brush and it's supposed to be fun, and in some cases it could be terrifying, in other cases it could be fun. In other cases, it's just campy and cheesy, and that falls into the fun category, of course. But I don't know. It's for me. I think that what really got me into horror was more of this thoughtful exploration of disturbing stories that could parallel humanity and reality, while simultaneously delivering a very frightening kind of coexistence with the macabre. So, if you follow Romero during the Living Dead series, and it's such a reflection of like the social anxieties at the time and everything, and it was a little bit more of a serious take on it. Romero wasn't looking to make a movie where he freaked people out with scenes of flesh-eating zombies.
Yeah.
That wasn't that wasn't his full intention. His intention was to tell a story, and I think for me that's such an important thing that I worry to some extent that the horror community is losing its focus on demanding that kind of thing. And I feel that there's such an explosion of the exploitation side of horror because people feel that it's the cheap and easy way to kind of deliver a horror story, where I'm a fan of things like The Exorcist or Jaws or The Thing, or anything that kind of dives more into relationships.
I agree.
The flaws of mankind, and the funnest thing for me about horror has always been what a reflection it is of our inner hang-ups, whatever it be.
Yep.
Pride, anger, addiction, abusive whatever it is. It's that to me has always kind of been the draw to me, is that I love when you ground anything fantastical in reality and it makes it more relatable. I think that's a good story to tell.
I agree. I mean, one thing for me, like when I watch horror, is the characters. Like, I have to feel something about the characters,
Yeah.
and I have to somewhat relate to the characters and what they're going through, and feel something about them when bad shit starts happening to them.
Right.
Also, too, a great horror villain, you kind of have to relate to them as well a little bit. A great horror villain, not saying that you're cheering for them, but you see where they're coming from. You know what I mean? I almost say, I see why this person is doing this. Right. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it, but because I said it many times, like the Terrifier movies. I'm not a fan of those movies. The second one was decent, but I'm not, for the most part, I'm not a fan of those movies because it's all about exploitation, gore, and there's nothing. You don't feel nothing about the characters. It's just like you could just put a piece. It's like putting a piece of meat in front of a villain, and he just runs right through them, and you don't get a chance to even know nothing about them. And also, you don't get nothing to know nothing about Art the Clown. Is a great villain, but you don't know nothing about him. Like, it's just a thing that's there. And
yeah. I think a lot of people agree that the best parts, the best characters in horror movies are the ones that you really like, or that you worry about and that you connect to or relate to. And not a ton of horror movies have hit it out of the park with that. A few have, and most of the ones that have had those characters kind of return. So like yes. Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, or Ash in Evil Dead, or and that's a big component for me too. Even if those characters meet their demise, I think it's important that you care about them. Because especially when they meet their demise, let me rephrase that. Especially when they meet their demise, because it's easy to make a movie where you have massive amounts of people being killed, and it doesn't faze you because there's no connectivity to those characters. They're meat for the lions, basically, right?
War porn.
Yeah. You just kind of you want to connect a little bit, so that I think because the formula is when you care about a character and they get killed, you are then shocked.
Yes,
right?
You feel bad. Bad. You're like, I hope they make it. I hope they get away. And then they get fucking like, oh shit.
And I think what's tended to start to happen in horror movies is that some of the filmmakers are maybe trying to give the audience what they want by, like you said, just kind of slaughtering characters where the crowd is now more cheering for, all right, let's see how brutal or how bizarre this this death is going to be. Like I said, there's a place, I think, for everything. Again, everything that I tell you is just basically from my perspective and what I enjoy about films. And I agree with you. What I really enjoy about films and about horror films is caring about the characters that are in jeopardy and finding whatever shock value or scare value out of that film in the jeopardy that they find themselves in. But because they're delivered so well, either by good actors or by good writing or good storytelling, it makes it exciting for me. Yeah. It's not a video game, so it's
not.
Yeah.
And it could even be a character that you feel hatred towards, and you can't wait for the villain to kill them. Like, you got to feel something about the characters.
Right.
You can't just be like, I don't know who the fuck this is. It's some random person that's getting killed.
Right.
You don't feel anything. That gets boring. That gets boring after 2.5 hours, which Terrifier 2 was. That in the theater, after 2.5 hours of just seeing people just get murdered with no story, it gets a little boring. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, all right, Tom, where can everyone find you in your film?
So Return to the Theater of Terror is available on Amazon Prime. It is available on Apple TV. It is available on, I think it's Hoodoo, or Voodoo. I'm sorry, Voodoo. I just finished making a Voodoo movie, by the way, called Bitter Souls with Cannon Fire Productions, Showtime American Pictures, Showtown American Pictures. I apologize. And starring Michael Hargrove from the Candyman remake and Adriana Rose.
Nice guy.
Yeah, just great people all together. So that was a lot of fun. That's why Voodoo was on the top of mind. I am currently editing that film in between this interview. So, you guys can find me on theaterofterror.net, Thomas Ryan on Facebook, or Theater of Terror on Facebook. And I appreciate my audience. I appreciate everybody that has any interest in the work that we do. We're a hard-working, New Jersey-based independent horror production company, and we're cranking them out, and we got some new ones coming out this year and next year, so stay tuned. Thank you very much too, Travis. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about this stuff.
I love it, bro. I love it. Well, listen, everyone, please follow Thomas and his work, and also listen, check out Return to the Theater of Terror. It's a fun ride. I definitely enjoyed it. I love anthology films. It's a great movie. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and that's Tom Ryan. We'll see you next time. Take care.